Hiya, welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, I'm Kayla. I am a mum to a toddler who is nearly 3, and I am also a childminder to toddlers. All of my children I look after are 2 upwards. And my videos tend to be kind of around Montessori, kind of any type of child-led approach. I take influences from different approaches here, like Waldorf as well. But yeah, generally I like to share play ideas, activity ideas, anything toddler related, and a little bit about life too. So today's video is one, I'm kind of answering a question that I'm asked quite a lot about open-ended play. Because if you've seen my Instagram, which is Mimi's Toddler Playhouse, or if you've seen other videos of mine, you'll know that I really do like open-ended resources, and I love open-ended materials and lots of loose parts in the play space. A lot of people are really unsure about how to use them, what kind of activities you can do with them. So I kind of want to just answer some questions that I've been asked about open-ended play in the hope to help you get a bit more clarity on it. So the first question is, what is open-ended play and what is loose parts play? Open-ended play and loose parts play, pretty much the same thing, to be honest. Basically it's a resource or a toy or an item that doesn't really have a purpose. It doesn't have a way in which it needs to be used or played with. Okay, where are you going with those, darling? Okay, honey. You know, like a board game has rules, it has a way in which it's supposed to be played with. Open-ended materials and loose parts don't. Toys which don't really have a way in which they need to be used. There's no rules, there's no guidance, there's no kind of how to, or there's no this needs to be played in this particular way. It's completely open-ended and completely up to the individual child as to how they want to play with it and how they want to use it, which is the beauty of open-ended play, really. The reason that open-ended play is so beneficial is because it really helps children to be creative and use their imagination. If you think, like, if you've got a toy that needs to be used in a particular way, you know, like a puzzle. I mean, we do love a puzzle here, to be fair. So I'm definitely not kind of putting a downer on puzzles, because I do love them. But yeah, if you think of a puzzle, and like a peg puzzle, there's only one way in which you can use that puzzle. You kind of put the peg piece in, you take it out, and that's it. Once the child has mastered that, there's really nowhere else they can go with it apart from just to move on to something else. Whereas open-ended materials can be used in so many different ways, and it helps children to kind of build on their creativity and come up with ideas and how they can use it. They can extend their interests as well. So to give you an example, like if you've got a child that's really interested in like knights and princesses and castles, and you present them with a basket of different people and a basket of blocks, you know, then they can use those resources to kind of build on their interests. So they could build a castle, and they could use the people to come up with really great kind of small world play and stories, and it can keep them engaged for a really long time. It can go on for I'm getting so distracted right here. It can go on for hours, and that's really what we want. We want play that kind of engages our children and helps them to be creative and follow their interests and their likes and their desires, and kind of extend their learning in that way. So another point I'll make is open-ended play does vary by age. When a child is a lot younger, like a kind of baby, you can start introducing things like treasure baskets, which is just a big basket of random resources. It can be natural materials that you can find outside, it can be things that you've got around the house, just random items in a basket for them to explore. Because when children are younger, it's all about exploration. It's all about kind of moving around their environment and just exploring what they can kind of grab hold of, tasting with their mouth and just learning about their environment in that way. From a very young age, we introduced treasure baskets to our daughter. That was kind of her first introduction to open-ended kind of loose parts exploration. And then as children get older, they use materials in very different ways. So for example, this rainbow that we've got up here, we've had that maybe about a year. And when I first got it, when Mia was a bit younger, she used it very differently to how she does now. So at first she would just stack it, and she could only stack a few of the smaller pieces. Now she kind of stacks it and then she'll match up different colours with it. So she's got little peg people that she'll put in between and match up the colours. Sometimes she'll use it as something to jump over for kind of like more kind of physical development. Sometimes she'll use it as kind of a little baby bed and a little swing. Sometimes she will use it as little tunnels in her kind of car play and vehicle play. So that is a perfect example of an open-ended resource. It's a rainbow. There's no real way to use it. Hey Mimi. It's completely up to the individual child as to what they want to do with it. And my next point is that open-ended resources save you money because they can be used from a really young age to kind of all the way up to kind of 4, 5, 6 years old, because as they get older, as I said, they use them very differently. But play continues, you know, all through childhood, and there's always ways that open-ended materials can be used by all different ages of children. So I always asked about kind of activities with open-ended play, and that's a difficult one because when it comes to open-ended materials, it's really not up to kind of us as the adults to really get too much involved. It's kind of our job to let them have access to the materials and just kind of encourage them to know they're there and play with them, but then just kind of leave it up to them. As adults, if we get too much involved, then it becomes kind of our play and we end up leading the play, which then takes away from their own kind of individuality and their own creativity and their own kind of independence as well. So yeah, we kind of want to introduce them to the materials, let them know that they're there, and then just kind of let them play with them in whatever way they want, and just respect their style of play. So for example, like with a big basket of blocks, let's just grab that. I've got this one, which is a rainbow block. It's kind of like these, all different shapes. So there's so many ways that these can be used. They can be, you can put them up to the light and you can see all the different colours in there. They can do colour matching with them, so you can, all the shapes, you can kind of put shapes together. They can kind of match them up. They can make patterns on the floor or on the windows, or they can simply use them for kind of building and stacking and kind of making structures. And then we've got this type of block, which is just a standard kind of wooden block, all different shapes here. So these can be used to make houses, they can be used to make roads, they can be used to build towers and knock them down. They can be used to make bridges, and then I just put some extra kind of loose parts in there like this, so they can use these for kind of stacking as well. So for example, you've got these little round cylinder ones, you can kind of stack them, make little kind of structures. Little people can, you can use them in small world play. But yeah, I mean, every child will use them very differently, and that's the beauty of it. So I think blocks are a really good place to start with open-ended play. Just kind of let a child get in the basket. And just kind of go to town and just watch what they come up with. Encourage their creativity and just kind of sit back on your hands and just let them kind of play and see kind of how they play and observe them. I don't know.
Oh, where am I going to stay?
Where are you going to stay? Where would you like him to stay? So another type of kind of open-ended resource are these little graph pieces, like this. So they come in 3 different colours. different shades of green. These are just one type of kind of grap-at piece that you can get hold of. There's loads of different ones. I just kind of present these in a coconut bowl and just kind of leave them around the playroom. These can be used by children for counting, and they can be used in small world play. They can use them as little trees. My daughter's used them for like making designs and patterns on the floor, so she'll kind of line them up, and she'll colour code them as well, so she'll put all the dark green ones together. So it really depends on where your child is in their stage of development. You know, do they like stacking things? Do they like knocking things over? You know, do they like lining things up and sorting? Do they like organising? Do they like filling containers and emptying containers? Because this type of resource, you know, these smaller parts are really good for filling and that kind of thing. This is another one here. This is a little red one. And then we've also got this type of material as well. So these are also grap-at pieces. They look like a little honeycomb. These are actually my favourite. And then we've also got some big like glass pebbles, which they absolutely love. They feel amazing. They're really good weight. But yeah, they're all different colours and beautiful, like shiny materials. They absolutely love these. So we use these for counting activities, you know, for doing like maths. It's all kind of tangible. It's all things they can hold and touch and explore with their hands, which is the type of play that I love. I'll just show you around what we have. So my favourite type of open-ended materials are free stuff. Stuff that I can find in the house or in the garden. This is a big box of recycling, and this is played with all the time. So for example, these egg cartons were used in like sand play for filling. They're used for filling with different like beads and stuff. Sometimes they're used as a little home for like people and peg people. Sometimes we take them out with us on nature walks and we fill them with little nature finds. Boxes like this have been used for garages before. These little tunnels we've used as kind of like telescopes when we're in the garden. This has been used as a hospital. There's a little entrance at the front there for a little vehicle. So yeah, recyclables and kind of this type of free stuff that you find in your house has been by far the best addition to the playroom. They're also really good for cutting practice. If your child is using scissors, they're really good for making arts and crafts kind of stuff. So you can cut out the pieces and use it for sticking. You can draw on this, you can paint on this. And yeah, it's not being wasted, you're not chucking it away. So yeah, if you've got empty cartons and boxes and anything, then I would definitely recommend kind of putting something together like this. So another example of open-ended materials is animals and people, because they're just individual items and toys, but there's no particular way for them to be played with, and every child will play with them differently. So some children will set up a kind of small world play, and they can be used in like a sensory bucket. They can be taken in the garden and kind of explored in that way. They can use them to line up and do from like big to small. You can separate them by continent. You can learn about which, animals that come from Africa, for example, or animals that, live in the sea. There's so many different ways to kind of extend their learning around a big basket of animals. And then in here we've got a track they can put together, and lots of different vehicles and planes and stuff like that. And then in here we've got lots of different materials that they can use for, anything really. Like these silks, they use for hide and seek. They'll kind of attach them together and use them to hide under. They'll wrap their babies in them and use them as blankets. So yeah, you don't have to buy silks. You can get like old sheets and just cut them up. or old blankets that you've got and cut them up and just kind of put them in a basket or somewhere they can access it, and they'll just pull them out and play with them. So if you find your child isn't very interested in loose parts at first, one thing that you can do is you can put together a kind of invitation to play. So what it is just you set up an area with the loose parts kind of laid out in a kind of an interesting way for them to explore. So you're still not really getting involved in their play, and it's still open-ended, but you're just kind of making it a bit more inviting for them. So for example, here we've got a tree house that I made. So what I might do is I might put a few peg people over there. I might put one of these kind of grappat baskets over here. I might put a few blocks over there, and then they can come over and naturally they'll kind of go to the closest thing. So as they're playing, they'll be like, oh, okay, we'll do a little small world play, and then they might start using these as like food on the dinner table, might start kind of lining them up as little trees around there. So yeah, I mean, that's just one example, but if you look on my Instagram, there's a few ideas for invitations to play ideas, and I mean, Instagram is full of inspiration, but yeah, that's just one kind of idea. Over here we've got another kind of invitation to play. This is more kind of like a maths themed. So I've got some loose parts I put here. I made these little sticks with ladybirds on. So I mean, if I was to decide how it would be played with, I would say you can kind of post them in there, but it's not really down to me. So what I do is I leave it all here, and I just see how my daughter or my mindies might want to use them. So they might get these blocks out and decide that they might want to use these little parts and do some counting, which we've done before. They might decide they want to use these glasses and just kind of fill them up. And they might decide they want to stack the glasses. They might decide they want to fill the glasses with these little sticks. Or they might decide they want to post them and kind of get the idea. But yeah, an invitation to play is kind of still very open-ended, but it's just a bit more inviting for them. And you can put in lots of different loose parts to kind of help them engage with it a bit better. So in the garden, we've got lots of different kind of loose parts and open-ended materials. So here I've got a big like tub of sticks, and the way that this is used is in things like stirring. If they're doing like cooking outside, they'll use it for digging in the sand or in the garden. They'll use them to line up and compare by size. Sometimes they'll use them as little characters, so like stick people. And then we've got a tub of conkers. So these will be used for filling. They'll put them in their kind of cooking in the mud kitchen. We'll use them in Play-Doh for like making different shapes and kind of pressing into the dough to make different marks. They'll use them for painting. They'll use them for kind of throwing. So yeah, so many different options when it comes to loose parts. And then in here we've got a basket of these rings. So these can be used for like hooking round things. You can put them around sticks. They can use them for counting, for stacking, all sorts of stuff. And down here I've got lots of more loose parts here. We've got different rocks and shells, lots of different shells here, and lots of pine cones. So over here I've kept some kind of wood. This I found in some packaging of something I had delivered, and I kind of stuck it together and made like a little bit of a marble run, or they'll use it for cars as well. And then I've got wood here which they can kind of put against something and use it as like a little runway for cars. We can put it on the grass and they can use it for kind of like a balancing on as well, if you want to make like a little assault course. But all of this stuff is free or really cheap, and it's the best kind of way for them to get creative and use their use their imagination in their play. It's all about the child and just letting them kind of do whatever they want to do and get some learning from it. And then over here I've got some jars. I like to keep jars and little pots and things because they're really good for filling. They can use them in the sandpit, they can use them in the mud kitchen, they can use them for water play. Obviously they are glass, so they're breakable, so you just kind of have to keep an eye on them and make sure there's no kind of breaks in there. If you've got a child that's just kind of getting used to a turning motion, like the lids on and off, then this will be a really good challenge for them to try and open it. You can put things in there that they might want to get to kind of entice them to open that and close it. And then obviously you've got the bigger jar, which is a little bit more of a challenge, but there are ways to kind of make it work for younger children as well as older children as well. So then over here I've got like a little tinker tray, which is actually metal themed, because my daughter's quite into metal items at the moment. We've been learning about what things are made from, so like wood and metal and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I've kind of got like just some bits I found around the house. So we've got some little clips, and then we've got some like curtain rings. These are bolts and screws. So we've got one here which they can use for twisting on and off. I've got some little magnetiles there, little screwdriver, and then the parts here that they can put on. So this is great because children love small items. They go through kind of a sensitive period for small things, and they love little fiddly tiny items that they can play with, especially real life items as well, stuff that they might not usually get access to, you know, like things from Daddy's toolbox, like screwdrivers and stuff like that. So these are fantastic because they're so good for fine motor, you know, trying to pull that out of there and place it in the screwdriver, you know, in the right way. Using these for kind of twisting on and off. And then these rings as well, they might want to try and loop them together. They might want to make like a pattern on the ground. They might want to put these clips and try and clip them onto other things. So every child's really different as to how they'll approach a kind of tray like this. But you know, but that's the beauty of it, is just kind of watching and seeing how they go about it and what they're kind of interested in. So this is here because I actually set up a magnetic activity. So this is a sheet of magnet here, and you can kind of put the metal items on there, and she was making like little faces with it and different shapes and stuff like that. So thanks so much for watching. I hope that was helpful, and do subscribe if you're new to my channel. You can subscribe below and check out some more of my videos. I'd love to have you along this journey with me, and do comment if you've got anything that you want to know, anything that you are interested in, or if you've got any particular topics that you want me to talk about, then do let me know. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next video.